The planet Valora floated like a sapphire in the endless black of space. Its skies shimmered with silver clouds, and its cities gleamed with towers made of crystal. The Valorians, tall and graceful beings with glowing eyes and soft blue skin, were a peaceful race known for their calm nature. Among them lived Princess Liara, the youngest daughter of the royal family, gentle, quiet, and far too timid for a galaxy at war. Liara was not like her siblings. While her sisters debated politics and her brothers trained with energy staffs, she preferred the company of flowers. Her crystal garden, hidden behind layers of glass and light, was her escape from the noise of the royal court. She would spend hours there, listening to the hum of life around her, whispering to the plants as if they were her friends. The world beyond her walls frightened her, the chaos, the sounds, the pressure of being royal in a galaxy full of conflict. But destiny is not something one can hide. From the Great War between the Terran Federation and the Karth Dominion had spread to every corner of known space. Valora, though peaceful, stood between these two powers, a jewel the Dominion wanted, and the Federation needed to protect. Her father, King Thalon, was forced to choose a side. He signed an alliance with the humans, the warriors of Earth, and to strengthen that bond he chose Princess Liara as the Valorian representative. When the announcement came, Liara froze in disbelief. "Me," she whispered. "Father, I'm not brave like the others. I can't even speak in front of the council without trembling." Her father smiled gently, resting his hand on her shoulder. "Courage is not the absence of fear, my daughter. It is the strength to act despite it. The humans value honesty and heart. You have both." But Liara's heart pounded. Humans. The name itself made her nervous. They were known across the stars for their fierce spirits, their ability to fight and survive against all odds. They were strong, emotional, unpredictable. Stories of their warriors were legendary and terrifying. Among those stories, one name echoed louder than the rest: Commander Alex Reed. A man who had once faced an entire Karth fleet with only 5 ships and lived to tell the tale. He was a symbol of human courage, and the one assigned to be her personal protector. Liara couldn't sleep that night. She sat by her window, staring at the twin moons above the glowing city. The thought of meeting such a warrior filled her with unease. What if he thought she was weak? What if she made a mistake in front of him? The Valorian court already whispered that she was too soft, too fragile to lead. Would a human, a battle-hardened soldier, and see her the same way? The next morning, her attendants helped her dress for the arrival. A flowing gown of white silk shimmered like moonlight, and a silver crown rested lightly on her head. Her hands trembled as she looked at herself in the mirror. "I don't look like someone who can face a warrior," she murmured. "You look like someone worth fighting for," her attendant said softly. The words warmed her heart, but her nerves remained. Outside, the courtyard buzzed with anticipation. The sound of engines filled the air as the human dropship descended from the sky. The Valorian guards stood in perfect lines, their armor gleaming, their faces calm. Liara stood among them, her veil trembling with her breath. The ship's ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. Heavy boots struck the ground. The humans emerged, tall, armored, powerful. Their faces were weathered and scarred, their movements sharp and precise. But one man stood out from them all: Commander Alex Reed. He was broad-shouldered, his dark hair slightly tousled, and a faint scar ran across his cheek. His eyes, sharp gray and steady, scanned the crowd before landing on her. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. He walked forward, each step echoing across the courtyard. When he reached her, he bowed deeply. "Your Highness," he said in a voice both calm and strong. "It's an honor to serve as your guardian." Liara's throat tightened. She had imagined him as loud and cold, but his voice held warmth, and something else she couldn't name. She forced herself to answer. "Thank you, Commander. Welcome to Valora." He smiled faintly, and that tiny gesture made her chest flutter. As he stood beside her, the timid princess realized something strange. She had feared the moment she met a human warrior. Yet now that it had come, her fear wasn't of him hurting her. It was of how easily his presence could make her heart forget to stay calm. The human warrior. Commander Alex Reed had landed on Valora with a quiet authority that made even the Valorian guards pause. He did not rush, did not speak loudly, and yet his presence filled the courtyard with an invisible tension. Princess Liara watched him from the steps of the palace, her small hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her heart raced, not from fear of him but from the strange pull she felt in his calm, steady eyes. Alex had been briefed on the Valorian culture, but nothing could prepare him for the delicate beauty of the princess herself. Liara's blue skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, her glowing eyes reflecting curiosity and worry. She was small and delicate, yet there was an unmistakable strength in the way she held herself despite her trembling hands. Alex bowed again, his voice low and steady. "Princess Liara, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe." Liara managed a small nod, barely able to meet his gaze. She had imagined him as a towering, fierce figure, perhaps someone impossible to approach. Yet standing here, he seemed human. Not just human in body, but in the kindness that softened his sharp edges. Her chest tightened, and she quickly looked away, afraid of what she might feel if she lingered on his face too long. The first hours passed in a haze of introductions and tours. The palace staff moved around efficiently, explaining protocols, showing Alex the places where he would be stationed. Liara shadowed him silently, observing how he treated the staff with respect, never condescending, never abrupt. He noticed small things, a trembling guard, a broken panel on the wall, and addressed them calmly. She had expected him to be intimidating, to radiate danger, but instead, he radiated attention. A gentle power that was both commanding and comforting. Each time their eyes met, Liara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She tried to focus on her duties, but her thoughts kept drifting back to him. His smile, faint though it was, lingered in her mind long after he turned away. By mid-afternoon they were in the royal council chambers, observing the preparations for the upcoming alliance talks. Valorian senators moved in and out, debating in low voices. Alex remained quiet, standing slightly behind her, his eyes scanning the room for threats. Liara noticed the way he shifted his weight, always balanced, always alert. She could not help but admire it. She whispered softly to herself, "He is so strong, even when he doesn't try." Alex heard her mutter and glanced at her. Their eyes met, and Liara quickly looked down, cheeks warming. She had not realized she had spoken aloud. Alex raised a single brow, a faint, amused smile tugging at his lips. "Are you nervous, Princess?" he asked quietly so that only she could hear. Liara swallowed, her throat tight. "A little." "Yes, good," he said simply. "It means you care. Courage is not the absence of fear, Princess. It is acting despite it." She stared at him, surprised that he could say something so simple yet so profound. Her chest swelled with a mixture of admiration and something she did not yet understand. She wanted to speak more, to ask him about his travels, about Earth, about the battles he had survived, but her voice failed her. The words remained trapped, leaving her only with a nervous smile. The sun began to set over Valora, casting a soft orange glow across the crystal towers. Alex stood at the edge of the balcony, his silhouette outlined against the fading light. Liara hesitated before stepping closer, wanting to feel the courage she saw in him, if only by proximity. He did not speak, only allowed her to be near. Somehow that was enough. She realized then that her fear of humans, of the galaxy outside her crystal walls, had not disappeared. But in Alex Reed's presence it did not matter. She felt safe, and more than that, she felt a connection she could not name, a quiet stirring in her chest that made her pulse race. As the evening deepened and the stars began to twinkle, Liara knew one thing clearly. She would have to learn to stay calm around this human warrior, or risk losing herself entirely to the strange, magnetic force he carried wherever he went. Her timid heart, so used to hiding, was already beginning to stretch toward him little by little, like the first fragile shoots of spring. The calm of Alora's palace was shattered one morning by a sound that sent chills through Liara's timid heart, the blaring alarm of an intruder alert. The crystal towers trembled with the shock waves of plasma blasts and the corridors filled with chaos. Valorian guards rushed past her, their faces pale but determined. Liara froze, unable to move, her heart pounding in her chest like a trapped bird. And then she saw him. Commander Alex Reed, standing tall amid the chaos, his armor gleaming despite the sparks and smoke. His rifle was already raised, scanning the corridors with deadly precision. Even the Valorian guards, trained for years, seemed to pause in awe at his calmness. Liara felt her breath catch. She had never seen anyone move like that. Every step Alex took was measured, every gesture confident. He intercepted a plasma blade just inches from a guard's shoulder and countered with a swift, controlled strike that sent the attacker sprawling. He moved like a storm contained in perfect form, and yet it was a precision that made it almost beautiful. Her knees shook and she stumbled backward. The intruders were humanoid, disguised as envoys. Their eyes were cold, their weapons deadly. Liara had read about assassins in the archives, stories of their ruthlessness, but nothing could have prepared her for the real thing. Fear threatened to consume her. Then Alex's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. "Princess Liara, stay behind me. Move quickly." Liara followed instinctively, staying close, her small hands gripping the railing of the stairwell. She watched as Alex blocked another attack, the sparks flying off his armor like tiny shooting stars. He did not hesitate. Not once. And with each move, Liara realized something terrifying. She was falling further under the spell of this human warrior. An intruder lunged toward her, plasma blade raised, and she froze. Before she could react, Alex was there, catching the attacker with a single hand, twisting and disarming him in a motion so fast it made her eyes water. "Stay close," he said. And for the first time, Liara felt both fear and relief at the same time. The corridors of the palace were a blur of light and shadows as Alex led them to the secure chambers. He moved with purpose, checking every corner, every hall. Liara followed silently, her timid nature clashing with the adrenaline racing through her veins. She wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but her voice failed her. Finally, the last intruder fell. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of burned circuits. Liara looked around, shaking, tears welling in her glowing eyes. Alex approached her, crouching slightly to meet her gaze. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice low and steady. She shook her head, unable to speak. Her hands trembled as they reached for his armor. "You're bleeding," she whispered. Alex brushed off the wound casually, wincing only slightly. "I've had worse," he said, a faint smile on his lips. "Are you all right?" Liara nodded, her tears falling freely now. The storm of fear inside her was subsiding, replaced by something entirely new. Relief, awe, and a strange, fluttering warmth she could not name. She realized that it was not just the danger that had shaken her. It was the way he had faced it, how he had moved, protected, and risked himself without hesitation. For the first time, Liara understood that courage was not something she could merely read about in books. It was living, breathing, and standing in the fire without flinching. And Alex Reed, he was courage made flesh. As she watched him stand tall, wiping the blood from his arm, her heart swelled with a mixture of admiration and longing. She had spent her life hiding, shrinking away from the galaxy's chaos. Now she wanted to be close to the man who had taught her, in action if not in words, what it meant to be brave. Her timid heart, so used to fear, began to expand in ways she could not fully understand. The human warrior had entered her world, like a storm, and for the first time Liara did not want to run. She wanted to stay, and maybe, just maybe, she wanted to face the galaxy alongside him. The palace was quiet after the attack, but the silence felt heavy, filled with unspoken tension. Valorian guards moved cautiously, checking walls and corridors, while medics tended to minor injuries. Princess Liara, however, found it impossible to settle. She wandered through the halls, her fingers trailing along the crystal walls, thinking about the human warrior who had saved her life. Commander Alex Reed remained at her side, his presence a constant, quiet reassurance. He had refused to leave even after the palace declared the immediate threat over. His armor was scratched and scorched, his hand bleeding from a close strike. Yet he walked with the same calm confidence that had defined him since his arrival. Liara watched him from a distance, her timid heart pounding. How could someone so strong appear so gentle? How could someone capable of facing death so fearlessly also seem approachable, almost human? Later that evening, she found herself drawn to the palace gardens, a place she had always considered her sanctuary. The light of the twin moons reflected on the crystalline fountains, casting soft glimmers across the path. Alex was already there, crouched by the fountain, cleaning his rifle with careful precision. The sight was strange, intimate in a way. She had never seen him in a peaceful moment, and somehow it made him seem more real, less like the invincible hero the galaxy feared. "Commander," she whispered, stepping lightly onto the marble path. Her voice shook, though she tried to keep it steady. "You shouldn't stay awake all night." Alex looked up, his sharp gray eyes softening when they met hers. "Habit," he said simply. "Sleep's a luxury in war. Besides—" He glanced at the fountains, the moonlight catching on the edge of his armor. "I like to think while the world sleeps. Helps me prepare for what comes next." Liara hesitated before sitting on the edge of the fountain, careful to keep a respectful distance. She wanted to ask him everything: where he came from, why he fought so fiercely, what had shaped him into someone so brave, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she said softly, "Why do you fight so hard for others?" Alex paused, looking at her as if weighing his answer carefully. "Because someone has to," he said finally. "Someone has to stand between the innocent and the dangers they cannot fight alone." His voice was calm, almost tender, and yet it carried the weight of countless battles. Liara's glowing eyes filled with tears. She had never met anyone who spoke so plainly yet carried such profound truth. "You're kind. You burn so bright," she said, her voice trembling. "Even when the galaxy tries to snuff you out." He looked at her, and for the first time his usual guarded expression softened completely. "And your kind," he replied, "reminds us why we fight. For beauty, for peace, for something worth protecting." Her heart skipped a beat. His words, simple and unassuming, hit her deeper than anything she had ever heard. In that moment, the timid princess realized something frightening. She was beginning to depend on his strength, not just for her safety, but for her courage. She wanted to be brave, but only when he was near. A gentle breeze passed through the garden, stirring the silver leaves. Liara lifted her gaze to him, feeling an unspoken connection that neither fully understood. It was not just admiration or gratitude. It was something more delicate, fragile, yet powerful. Her chest tightened as she realized the truth. She was drawn to him in a way that terrified her almost as much as the galaxy itself. Alex noticed her quiet contemplation, and without words, nodded toward the night sky. They sat together in silence, Two very different beings bound by the recent chaos, yet finding comfort in the simple act of being near each other. Liara felt her heart, so often timid and fearful, expand just a little, learning that strength could be gentle and courage could be shared. For the first time in her life, Liara did not feel the need to hide from the world. She did not feel the need to shrink behind her fears. She only felt the quiet, steady presence of the human warrior, the one who had shown her that even timid hearts could find strength in unexpected ways. And as the night deepened over Valora, Princess Liara realized something remarkable. Perhaps she did not need to be brave alone. Days passed after the attack, yet the palace of Valora felt heavy with whispers. Princess Liara moved carefully through the halls, aware of every glance. Some of the Valorian council members whispered that a human should not be so close to their princess. A warrior is beneath her, they said quietly. She should not rely on him. Liara overheard fragments of conversations and felt her heart tighten. She wanted to retreat into her gardens, to hide behind the familiar glow of crystal flowers, yet something inside her refused. Commander Alex Reed remained at her side through it all, his calm presence shielding her more than any wall of crystal or guard ever could. She found him in the gardens one evening, as the twin moons painted the fountains in silver light. He was cleaning his armor, methodical, his silence a gentle contrast to the chaos of the court. Liara approached cautiously, hands clasped in front of her. "Alex," she whispered, "the council, they don't approve of us being so close." He looked at her, his gray eyes soft and unreadable. "Let them talk," he said simply. "I am here because it is my duty. Nothing else matters." Liara felt a flutter in her chest at his words, a mixture of comfort and fear. Duty, yes, but she could see something deeper in the way he looked at her, a quiet concern that went beyond orders. She took a hesitant step closer, unsure if she was allowed this small act of rebellion. "Who protects you, Alex?" she asked suddenly, her voice trembling. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second, and she saw something almost hidden, a shadow of loneliness. "No one," he said quietly. "Never really. Never like this." The admission struck her like a pulse of light through her chest. All her life, she had felt small, timid, and overlooked. Yet here was someone, a warrior, who had faced death countless times, admitting that he needed someone to watch over him. Without thinking, Liara reached out and lightly touched his hand. Her fingers brushed his, tentative, almost afraid he would pull away. But he did not. For a long moment, they stood in silence, hands barely touching, sharing something neither could fully explain. Liara realized she had never felt so connected to another being. Fear and admiration mixed with a new warmth she had never known. She wanted to speak, to confess something she barely understood herself, but the words stuck in her throat. Alex's gaze softened, and he leaned slightly closer, though. "Careful not to overstep her boundaries. You have more courage than you know," he said gently. "Your people, your planet, they see it. And so do I." Liara felt her chest tighten. His words were simple, yet they carried weight that made her tremble. Courage had always been an abstract word to her, something she read about in the archives but never believed applied to her. And now, standing beside Alex, she felt it in herself, in the quiet strength it took to stay close, to care, to face judgment and fear with a steady heart. But the court's whispers were not idle. One evening, as Liara walked the corridors, a counselor approached her with a stern expression. "Princess, a human warrior is not fit to be by your side," the elder said, his voice low but sharp. "The council is concerned. Your reputation, the dignity of Valora. It is at stake." Liara's heart pounded. She thought of Alex, of how he had saved her life, how he had taught her courage simply by being near her. She could not bear to imagine a world without him at her side. Swallowing her fear, she straightened her shoulders. "The galaxy is not always safe," she said softly. "And sometimes protection comes from the strongest heart, not the noblest title." The counselor frowned, but she did not waver. Her timid voice had grown stronger, shaped by the presence of the human warrior she could not stop thinking about. For the first time, Liara understood that bravery was not measured by approval or ceremony. It was measured by the heart, and by the courage to stand beside those who mattered most. That night she found Alex in the gardens once more. Their hands met again, this time not by accident but by choice. "You've given me more than protection," she whispered. "You've given me courage." Alex's lips curved in the faintest smile, his eyes warm despite the faint scarred lines of past battles. "And you've reminded me why I fight," he said. "For someone worth protecting, for someone like you." Liara felt her timid heart swell. In a galaxy full of chaos and war, she had found something rare, something powerful. A human who could match her quiet strength with his unwavering courage. And for the first time, she believed that perhaps even the smallest heart could hold the greatest power. The horizon of Valora burned red as the Karth fleet emerged from the blackness of space. Hundreds of ships, dark and jagged, cut through the atmosphere like hungry predators. The peaceful planet, with its crystal towers and silver clouds, trembled under the threat of annihilation. Alarm sirens screamed throughout the palace, echoing through corridors that had always been calm. Princess Liara's timid heart raced faster than ever before. She had witnessed the galaxy's dangers from books and stories, but seeing it in reality made her knees weak. Her people were panicking, running through halls, and the Valorian guards were already mobilizing to protect her. Yet amid the chaos, one presence brought her a fragile sense of stability. Commander Alex Reed was there, standing tall at the palace command center. His armor bore fresh scratches from previous skirmishes, but his posture remained unshakable. "Princess Liara, stay close," he ordered calmly, though his voice carried steel beneath the calm. "We move now. Follow my lead." Liara nodded, her hands gripping the railing of the staircase as Alex guided her toward the evacuation wing. She could feel the tremors of incoming strikes through the palace floors. Plasma fire streaked across the sky, casting shadows of destruction across the city. As they moved through the halls, Liara realized how much she relied on him, not just for safety, but for courage. Her own timid nature struggled to keep pace with the chaos, yet the warmth of his presence gave her strength. Every glance he gave her, every subtle gesture anchored her trembling heart. They reached the main courtyard where the first wave of Karth soldiers had landed. The attackers were vicious, armed with plasma rifles and energy blades. Alex raised his weapon and fired with precise efficiency, taking down enemies one by one. The sound of blasts and screams filled the air, yet he remained composed, almost serene amid the storm. Liara's hand brushed against her plasma staff, something she had never used in combat before. Alex noticed her hesitation and gave her a brief nod. "You can do this. Trust yourself." Her pulse thundered in her ears, but she followed his words. She stepped forward, her staff crackling with energy as she deflected a strike aimed at a Valorian guard. The action was clumsy at first, yet with each movement she found rhythm, inspired by Alex's fearless example. Side by side, human and princess moved against the Karth soldiers, their coordination instinctive. Then a massive explosion rocked the courtyard. Alex pushed Liara toward the evacuation shuttles. "Go now!" he shouted over the roar of fire and chaos. "No!" Liara cried, clutching his arm. "I won't leave you." Alex's eyes softened and a rare, genuine smile appeared. "Someone has to cover your escape," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the flames around them. "I'll be fine. Just get out." Tears blurred her vision as she shook her head. "You can't—" "I can," he interrupted gently. "And I will. Now go." With one last glance at him, Liara sprinted toward the shuttles. Her heart ached, torn between duty and the fierce desire to stay. As the shuttle doors closed, she watched Alex turn back to face the Karth soldiers, moving like a force of nature, fearless and unyielding. His silhouette, illuminated by fire and destruction, became etched into her heart, a symbol of bravery she had never imagined. As the shuttle lifted off, Liara pressed her hands to the viewport, whispering his name. Alex, please come back to me. Her fear had not vanished, but something new had taken root. A fierce hope. Even as the skies burned and the world seemed to fall apart, she knew that courage in its purest form existed in him. And somehow she felt it in herself too, growing with each heartbeat, ready to rise for the battles yet to come. The timid princess who once trembled at the thought of human warriors now understood something profound. Bravery was not just about fearlessness. It was about standing for those you loved, even when the world fell apart. And Commander Alex Reed had shown her exactly what that meant. Valora had survived the attack, but the city bore the scars of war. Cracked crystal towers glimmered faintly under the twin suns, and smoke still curled from the edges of the palace walls. The people, though shaken, were alive. The Valorian Council worked tirelessly to restore order, but Princess Liara found herself unable to focus on politics or diplomacy. Her thoughts were elsewhere, drifting to the human warrior who had saved her life, the one she had left behind in the fire. She walked through the palace gardens, her soft footsteps echoing in the quiet. The fountains reflected the morning light, and the silver leaves of the crystal trees shimmered. It was peaceful, yet she felt a hollow ache in her heart. Commander Alex Reed had vanished during the chaos, and no word had come from him since the evacuation. Every day she whispered his name to the sky, hoping that somewhere he was alive. Months passed, and the galaxy began to stabilize. The Karth fleet had been pushed back, and the Terran alliance strengthened. Yet Liara's heart remained tethered to the memory of that fearless warrior. She replayed the moments over and over, his calm in battle, the way he had shielded her, the faint smile he had given her before she boarded the shuttle. Her timid nature had been replaced by a quiet resolve. She realized that courage, once foreign to her, now lived in her heart. One morning, as the sun rose over the palace, a faint signal came through the royal communications, broken, distorted, but unmistakably human. Liara's hand shook as she activated the link. Princess, if you're hearing this, I made it. I'm alive. Still fighting. Still watching the stars for you. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. Relief, joy, and something deeper, something she had barely understood, swelled within her chest. Alex was alive. He had survived, just as he had promised. And he had thought of her even amidst the chaos of war. Liara fell to her knees in the garden, tears running freely down her face. The timid princess who once trembled at the thought of human warriors now felt a surge of strength. Her heart no longer feared the galaxy. It had learned the warmth of courage, the weight of loyalty, and the power of love. Weeks later, a Terran shuttle landed at the palace gates. Guards and council members gathered, curious and cautious. Liara's heart raced as the ramp lowered, and there he stood, Commander Alex Reed, alive and unscathed, though worn by battle. His gray eyes scanned the courtyard, and when they landed on her, a faint smile appeared. She ran to him, tears streaming, and threw herself into his arms. He held her tightly, his strength both comforting and awe-inspiring. You came back, she whispered, her voice trembling. I promised I would, he said softly. I told you I'd be watching the stars for you. I never forgot. For a long moment they simply held each other, two very different beings bound by trust, courage, and an unspoken love. Liara realized that the timid princess who once feared the universe had grown into someone who could stand beside a warrior, not just in safety, but in spirit. The people of Valora noticed the change in her. The princess who once hid behind her flowers now walked with quiet confidence, her glowing eyes full of determination. And by her side, Alex Reed became more than a protector. He became a symbol of the courage that humanity could bring to the galaxy, a courage that was strong, compassionate, and unafraid to fight for those who mattered. As years passed, stories of the human warrior and the timid Princess SP